Hello, my name is Mr. Stokowski, and I'm going to be going over how to do a DBQ. First off, welcome to my channel. My name is Mr. Stokowski, Mr. S for short. I teach AP European History, and I teach AP World History. I'm going to be doing a quick summary of how to do a DBQ and the PowerPoint that I use for my students. I'll make a more in-depth version of it for you guys too, and let me know if you like it. Thumbs up, subscribe, always appreciated. Alright, so this PowerPoint that I'm doing right now, it can be used for students or teachers. You guys can find a link to it on Teachers Pay Teachers, and you can buy a copy if you want to present it in class. If not, enjoy the video. So how to write a DBQ and what is a DBQ? A DBQ is literally a document-based question. How to do a question that's based with documents and how to use those documents to make a actual essay. Now, normally it's kind of understood that this is going to be an easy process, especially since if you come to like maybe elementary school or another type of class, maybe from before. This is a little bit different because the way you're going to be answering the question, it's not just answering it in the classic way of like a full sentence and then you'll be complete. Maybe you've heard of this before. But the way you address the question is you make a thesis statement, and in that thesis statement, you need to encompass different ideas of an argument and counter-argument, and with those counter-arguments and arguments, you need to encompass the documents to support your arguments and counter-arguments, okay? If it sounds more complex than a normal question in history, it is. But that's because you're doing an AP class right now, and you wouldn't be here if you weren't doing a harder class, right? You want to watch a video of someone going over all these details. So first off, the question is called a prompt. You have 7 documents that go along with this prompt or question. You have to answer the question by making a thesis argument, making a point. Sometimes you'll get a mini bio before, sometimes you won't, but important to know that when you're doing outside evidence, do not include what was in the question, the documents, or the little mini bio if it's an LEQ, long essay question, or whatever. You have 60 minutes to complete the portion of the AP exam, which is a DBQ, and time management and practice is essential for this. Now, how is the DBQ scored? It's scored out of 7 points. The points go as follows. First, number 1 is contextualization. Don't worry about the points. I'm going to be going through them throughout the PowerPoint, but I'm just doing an overview of it. The second point will be a thesis, which is a prompt or argument. You're answering the question, the prompt, with your argument or your thesis statement. 3 is going to be supporting your argument with at least 2 documents or more, the documents that they supply you. Number 4 is going to be supporting your argument with at least 2 or more documents, meaning if you need to just use 2, you get 1 point. If you use more than 2, 4, or usually you have to go for 6, then you'll get another point. It all depends on using how many documents you use and how well you use the documents. The golden rule for this for all my students is just go for 7. If you mess up on 1, you have the insurance because they basically give you 6 out of 7 documents if you use them. Go for 7. Doesn't hurt. If you mess up on 1 document, you paraphrase it or whatever wrong, you're still good. 5 is how you're going to hippo your documents. Hippoing is a strategy that's out there. I'll do a video to how to do it. It's important because it's an easy thing to remember when you're doing documents, to easily do an analysis of them, and the analysis of it is critical for interpreting the documents because you need to show the readers that you know how to interpret documents. 6 is using outside evidence, anything that is not in the documents or the question, or if they give you a bio or whatever, a picture, nothing that's outside, that's in the time period. You can't just say, modern day. It has to be whatever era you're doing in whatever class, it has to be pertaining to that era to make it work. And then using complexity, which is more of a tougher strategy, but if you practice on the beginning sections, you'll be able to accomplish those things later on, and I'll cover it. Now, how do I write 7 points into one? You can break your DBQ into 5 classic paragraphs. Your first paragraph, your intro, should have 2 things. It should have something called a contextualization and a thesis. The thesis answers the question. So contextualization is like a little mini story before the thesis question or the prompt, and then the thesis is an argument or point that answers the prompt. Okay, that's your intro. Then you would have 3 main body paragraphs, right? In each main body of a paragraph, which would be the easiest way to say this, is make sure you at least have 2 documents in each. Don't put all 7 documents or 5 documents in one paragraph, because you're not going to be able to do a proper analysis of it. The rule of thumb is they give you 7 documents, you have 3 main body paragraphs. You don't put any documents in the intro or the conclusion, right? The first paragraph or the last one. 2 documents in the first, 2 documents in the second, 2 documents in the third. That means that that's 6 documents. The last one, the 7th document, you can put in any other the groups that you do, but make sure you spread them out. That way you can do an analysis of those documents, and it's spaced out that you're shown that you're doing the documents. You do not lump documents of blah, 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 document 1 and 2. You don't get credit for either of them. You go through each document and you break down each document with a paraphrasing and an analysis of that document. And then the last paragraph, you restate your thesis a little bit differently, and then you do this thing called a synthesis, which is the continuation of what's happening in history at that point, what that period of time that you were talking about in your DBQ, your essay, links up to. Now, one issue that a lot of kids come up to me is like, Mr. Sokowski, what happens if I mess up on one part or something like that? Will I fail? No, you don't mess up on one part. It's not going to be horrible. You want to go for all of them if possible, and then if you're a little short on one or the other, you still get a good grade on this section of the DBQ, and you can still pass the AP exam without getting all perfect 7 points, right? Even if you do like 5 or even 6 out of 7, you're still really good on your way there. Now, what do I start with first? You really want to start off with being able to not write anything in the first 15 minutes. This is the golden rule. You have 7 documents in a question, basic idea, right? The first 15 minutes, you have the question, you read the question carefully in your brain, you understand what it's asking, and then that 15 minutes, you're thinking of the question and you're reading each document. As you read the documents, you hippo the documents, you do analysis of them, and you do this thing called sprite on the side. So, for instance, if it's a document that you think has economics in it, you put a little E there. But remember, the good rule of thumb is to do 2 sprite topics. Sprite is a tool I teach my students in the beginning, and what really it is that you can organize anything in history or any document or any work into these categories of sprite. Sprite stands for social, political, religious, intellectual, technology, or economics. Whatever document they give you should be able to fall into one of those categories. 9 times out of 10, it's going to be social, political, or religious documents that it falls into. Meaning next to each document, you're going to put an S, maybe for social, or S and P. Usually try to do 2. And then once you're ready to write, you go back and you say, oh, document 1, I put an S there. Okay, so I have 1 for there. Document 5, I put an S. Okay, so I'm going to put that into a social. I'm going to group them into a social paragraph. Oh, document 4 and 2 have, economic themes. So I'm going to group them into those. Okay? And then at the end, you would have a good grouping. Even them out, spread them out. You can sprite 1 with political and religious or mix and match them. But group them in a theme. That way you get the points for grouping, and it looks organized that you did some analysis of it. You don't just go 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. You group them, and they kind of usually spread them out in a way that you need to group them, and they're all kind of mixed and matched. Okay? But 9 times out of 10, it's social, political, and religious themes, and then that's how you want to group them to go forward. Now, how do you create a context? The easiest rule of thumb for contextualization, because I teach AP World and AP European History, is in AP World, since it's a big subject, you get about 200 years of leeway before. You can't go to like the Big Bang, but you can go about 200 years before that time that they give you the question. And you're writing like a mini like an introduction. I put it to my students this way, like if you're gonna watch a movie, you don't just start watching the movie and it jumps into the main scene of the movie, whatever movie it is, romantic, comedy, or whatever. They give you a build-up, they give you a backstory, they show you the person in their hometown or where they grew up or something like that to get you built up into before they actually give you what the movie's going to be really about. That's the same thing with the contextualization. You don't just jump into the question. Your job is to say, okay, I got a question on the French Revolution, right? You don't just start answering the French Revolution. You have to say what things happened before the French Revolution that I can write a contextualization about that led to the French Revolution. Now, some of you maybe don't know, but reality is that you'd be saying some stuff like the Enlightenment that happened in Europe, and how that influenced the American Revolution would be another one, and how those things really led to the French Revolution. Okay, so it just didn't pop off the French Revolution. There are things that happened in history before that led up to it. Now in Euro, you can only go about 100 years back. Probably the Enlightenment, American Revolution is perfect. Anything deeper than that, you're really just too far back. That doesn't connect to that time period. You can't go all the way back to like the Renaissance or something, right? In world history, you have a little bit deeper because you're covering all world history, so you have a bigger net to kind of throw at for contextualization. The easiest way to remember contextualization, 3 to 4 sentences of a backstory before the question they give you, right? So French Revolution, you don't start writing your essay on French Revolution. You're writing 3 or 4 sentences about the Enlightenment, the time of the Enlightenment, the early 1700s, right? Not the time of the French Revolution, the time before that, about 100 years, 1700s, right? In Europe, right? I'm saying that. Those are my sentences there. And then you want to say a time, a place, and you want to give some sort of evidence in there. So like you want to say like a Montesquieu's 3 branches of government during the Enlightenment was an influential idea that spurred off in the American Revolution, which later on influenced the French Revolution. And then at that point in my introduction, that's when I'm going to really make my thesis statement, and my thesis statement is going to address the French Revolution. So you see how I kind of gave you a background before I got into the French Revolution? That's what a contextualization is. Here, the instance I have here is for World War II. If you didn't know, World War I influenced World War II because World War I was the first time all the actual main countries or major countries in the world were fighting. That created something called the Great Depression, and then out of the Great Depression and reparations in Germany led to Hitler and like people like Mussolini coming to power, who started World War II. So that'll be a good contextualization of World War II. I'll be doing more of these as we go along. I'm just going to do a quick little synopsis of this PowerPoint and how you can find it in Teachers Pay Teachers, the link that I'm going to post in there. Again, if you like this video, subscribe, like it. I'll be putting content on about every week. I'm going to try for maybe a couple of times a month and see how it goes. I'll do lessons, I'll do ideas, I'll do things to kind of keep things going for you guys. So you'll be asked a question, this prompt, and basically the idea of this question is you just don't answer it in a complete sentence. You answer it by making your own point or argument within it. Even if the question doesn't ask you to make it, you need to understand that the College Board and AP readers and all that stuff, they're looking for you to make a point, a historical valid point that supports an idea that you're saying. Okay? So here, for instance, I have it. What influenced World War II more, politics or economics? You don't just answer politics was more. You say politically and also maybe with technology, basically were more influential than economics in World War II. All right, you need to push it beyond what the question is just asking you generically. This template over here is a great way to kind of look at it. Here, this is the one that this is not by me. This says here, although your counterclaim, meaning even though this is important, this and this are more important or more influential for World War II than this. So you're acknowledging this as your counter argument, but you're saying this is my argument, this is my point. This template is great. You need to memorize it, you need to burn it into your brain, because it automatically makes you make an argument. And you're like, well, I can make an argument. Yeah, but when I ask my students to make an argument, then they don't argue. But when I don't want them to argue about like a grade or something, they're always arguing. So you need to realize that this is the way to make a point, even if they don't ask you to make a point, and you need to put a point in there. So here you can say here, for instance, although new advances, so although part, in military weapons, technology played a major role leading into World War II. So you're saying, look, yeah, technology played a major role in World War II, but ultimately the major influences were the underlining unemployment, meaning, think about this, I like to have economics, my Sprite concepts of the region, and the rise of authoritarian regimes that caused World War II. Authoritarian regimes such as Mussolini or Hitler, you can put in there too. So it's saying even though technology was a major influence of World War II, ultimately my argument is that it was basically underlining unemployment and politics. Economics and politics were the major things that overlapped that. There, I'm making an argument. I'm giving you points, but I'm saying this was more influential than that. And that is the way you make an argument. And if you see here, those are the Sprite topics that I've already organized my documents in, and it's already been perfectly placed for a thesis statement. And now I just have to write the whole thing. Because in the first 15 minutes, you're thinking about how to plug it into this template, and you're thinking of you're annotating your documents and you're organizing them into Sprite. Here, you just kind of plug everything together, and then the next 45 minutes, you're just writing away. You're going back to your thesis every time, underline it when you do it, and you're going back to your thesis every time, making it point out. Every new paragraph you go into, every T paragraph here, the next section, you always go back to it, and you always reference it. The T paragraph is a great idea too that I found. You can find this anywhere in lower documents and stuff. But basically, what I tell my students when you go to your DBQ, remember your Sprite and your T. Sprite to organize your documents, T to write your paragraphs, and then the last one is don't forget the hippo in the room. That's how you do your analysis. If you remember those three things, you really can write a really great DBQ. So what's T paragraph? A T paragraph is once you've organized your documents, you annotated them with hippo, which we'll cover a little bit, and you made your thesis, you thought about a thesis statement, then you're ready to write your actual paragraph. So basically a T paragraph is a great structure for you to write your paragraphs as you go forward and to nail each document as you go. So the topic sentence for my one back here, the World War II one, would be the first topic sentence. I would do my counterclaim maybe. So I would say technology. So even though technology, my topic sentence, played a major role in World War II, and then you can kind of go into the evidence, you paraphrase the evidence, don't use the whole, don't quote the actual entire sentence. The best way of telling my students to give you credit for the evaluating of the actual documents is to paraphrase it. Because when you paraphrase it, you put in your own words, thus you show the ideas to the AP reader or whatever that you're actually able to understand and analyze the documents. Anyone can quote 3 sentences and say this is about economics. That's not writing, and the AP reader already read those documents. They don't want to see it again, right? Like no one wants to read something and read it again, and you're not writing. It's not your words. If you paraphrase it, then you say this graph shows the issues of how technology was a major influence of building tanks and guns in World War II, leading to the mass production of stuff. Document 2 or something like that. Right, that shows that the evidence is supporting my idea, and I paraphrase it and then say, picture of document 2 says technology was major stuff, so that's it. That's not you speaking, that's the document speaking for you. You paraphrase this document and then you do an analysis of it. The analysis is easiest to do is HIPPO. HIPPO stands for historical context, when was that time, right? It was the idea of the Industrial Revolution or whatever. I is intended audience. Who's this document intended for? No one makes a purpose for anything. I'm making a DBQ video for AP kids. I'm not making it for anyone that just, maybe people like it out there, but it's going to be for someone that wants to do well on this portion of the AP exam, right? So that's my purpose. Sorry, my intended audience is for those people that are taking it. I'm intending this for AP students. I'm not intending this for everyday people. P's stand for POV, which is the point of view. Where is this view coming from? Is this coming from the top down, bottom up? Is this from nobility talking to the peasants? Is this the peasants talking to nobility? Is this women talking to men? Is this factory owners talking to workers, right? Is this people that are religious against talking to another religion? What is the POV of this, point of view? And in that, you show a deeper analysis of it. And then the purpose of this. What's the purpose of this? Is this to have a reform? Is this to have change? Is this to keep the people down? Is it to talk to the people that are up there to bring them down? Is it about social justice? What is the point of this actual purpose of this document? And then outside is HIPPO is anything that's outside that you could put in. That's outside evidence. You don't just drop it in, but it's like a famous person, a work that they're known for, and how it ties into your actual documents and your essay. That's the last point there that's hard to do because you're already doing all this amazing analysis on all these documents. Okay? The formula for a T paragraph for each paragraph is, let's say this is my first one, I would have a tech topic. Then I would put my evidence of, paraphrase, blah, 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 doc 2. You separate all your documents. You do an analysis of every single document. You don't just lump them together. You don't get credit that way. You do an analysis of document. This comes from a HIPPO. This comes from a historical context, the purpose, blah, 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 blah. Then you paraphrase another document that you think is tech, right? You can pull out anything from the document as tech. Then you do an analysis of that. In this first paragraph, you see I already have 2 documents here. Perfect. Then maybe my second paragraph. You can mix and match this. It doesn't have to be in this order. Then you can do a T paragraph here. Your second one, which would be about going back to here. Let's say I'm doing economics, right? So here, the economic influences were major for World War II, blah, blah, blah. And then you paraphrase the document, and then you say document 5, right? And then you think that's economics, and then analysis of it. So it goes T, topic, evidence, analysis. Then you say, then paraphrase another document you thought was economics, and then you do analysis. And then you're like, hey, you know what? I know great outside information here, so I'm going to put some outside information here. How Adolf Hitler's rise led to was due to the massive unemployment in Germany and the reparations of World War II or something like that. And then you do analysis of that. And then there I would have my last one. Here, this is a T paragraph with 3 documents. You space them out. T, topic. Only say the topic one time. Evidence, analysis. Evidence, analysis. Evidence and analysis. The evidence in this is the documents that you pick. You do not say in document blah, blah, blah. You paraphrase it and then you put it in quotes after. Not quotes. You put it. You paraphrase. You put it at the end. You cite it inside citations. Basically in brackets at the end of your document. So blah blah blah. Parentheses. Document something. Right. So you do that kind of thing. You kind of put it in like doc 2, and that's where you're getting the information. And your documents are supporting your idea, and then you're doing an analysis of those documents. Never ever 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 start in document something. The reason why is because if you start in document 4 shows technology being a major thing, I lost my voice, right? Like I'm not making an argument anymore. Now the documents are talking for me. You want to say technology is a major part, production was at a high capacity, blah blah blah, stated document 2. Like document 2 supporting me. Document 2 is just there to support the historian, not vice versa, right? So that's why it's really important to kind of think that way, not to start off with and document something. These are some characteristics that you can use to basically help you organize and decipher these documents too if you have a problem starting that off and you want to have a good leeway. And then this is the HIPPO document that I'm going to be going over. I'll make another video for it, which is historical context, intended audience, purpose, point of view, and outside information. You can find these anywhere. They're great ways of doing analysis, and you need to practice this to do the analysis part. The conclusion, if you made it this far, you could, your last paragraph, you want to restate your thesis, because if you've written a 45-minute essay, and I know starting off creating a thesis statement in the beginning, you're like, what? Like, how am I going to come up with this every 15 minutes? And then you write your whole essay, and you're like, actually, it wasn't bad, but I would have tweaked it a little differently. Restate your thesis again in your conclusion, right? There, AP readers will read it. Maybe if you didn't do a good one in the first paragraph, they'll reread it at the end. And they're like, you know what? I'll give them credit for this thesis or her credit for this thesis at the end. So you restate your thesis a little differently. You can still get points that way. Usually it's clear after you wrote a 40-minute essay, right? Before that, you're just starting it off. But now you're like, I have my ideas clear as day. Write it like that. They'll give you that point there. And then you do this thing called the synthesis. You synthesize. So it will come after my thesis point. And the synthesis is basically the next 100 years. So you know the contextualization is like 100 or 200 years before the prompt. The synthesis is 100 or 200 years after the prompt of what this revolution or whatever or age led to. So for French Revolution, I can end it with like Napoleon Bonaparte. French Revolution led to not a democracy like America, but it led to the authoritarian ruler of Napoleon Bonaparte, and trying to take over most of Europe with his with issues of his, like an example would be his continental system trying to take over Britain or something like that. That would be how this period of time, my DBQ, my whole essay was on French Revolution, whatever, how that led to that period of time next. And then this helps get you the complexity point if by doing all the processes that I did before. And the complexity point is the magical unicorn. Unicorn is literally referred to it because it is hard to get. but it's possible. But one way of getting it is through that whole process of having a good contextualization, all that great stuff inside, and then having a good synthesis point. The other way to do it is a little bit more difficult in my view, but it's possible too. Or actually a couple of ways. You add so much outside information, not just one time in one of those T paragraphs, but you use it everywhere, that you like blow the reader away. You're like, whoa, wow, I gotta go look this up in my master's thesis. Oh my god, that's an amazing fact. I never knew that about the French Revolution. My world has changed around, right? Or every argument you make counter arguments to those arguments, and then you end with your argument. So you say both sides of every coin with evidence and information, and it actually works, and you always end with your point. So, for instance, for the World War II and political regimes, right? So even though I would say politically was a major influencer, politics was a major influencer of World War II through authoritarian rulers, right? As Hitler, which is usually seen as a negative, right? Not usually. Ultimately, though, Hitler did give benefits towards the German people because he gave jobs to them, right? But ultimately, through those jobs were acquired by taking it over from Jewish people or by reinstating certain types of devices over political powers over the people. Ultimately, it was seen as a negative thing, right? So I go back and forth with every topic I'm talking about, and I say all different sides of it, and then I kind of end with the side that I'm talking about. That's another way to do the magical unicorn. Magical unicorn. So other than that, that's basically a 101 of how to do a DBQ. A quick little synopsis. I have a link of this PowerPoint in there. And then what I'm going to do is I'm going to break them up into little sections that you can kind of see this PowerPoint in a little bit more detail. I'll try to do 5 or 10 minute things going forward with it. Okay? But other than that, like, subscribe. Thank you for watching. Have a great day, and DBQ on.